The Locked On Podcast Network presents the College Sports Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in college sports. From our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The College Sports Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in college sports.
The Houston Cougars did it. They've extended Kelvin Sampson through 2029.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start with Kelvin Sampson getting extended. Then I'll talk about Chris Nack and Isaiah Harwell getting recognized nationally and internationally. And yes, last but not least, we will touch on that BYU story and how it impacts Houston. Okay, so Kelvin Sampson extended. The details we've got that he's extended through the 2028-2029 season. That is a hefty 4 more years. People were worried about him as a man in his 60s, how much longer he wanted to do this. Now he has a lot of energy in his 60s, and if I am moving in that together and doing all the things like Kelvin Sampson is doing when I'm that age, I'm going to be a very happy man. Because frankly, there's days now where I'm in my 30s and I don't feel quite like that, if I'm being really honest. But there were people wondering like how close the guy was to retiring, hanging it up. We know his son, Kellen, is next in line to take over the program. Kellen's been named the coach in waiting, both officially and unofficially, for a while now. And so you're wondering when it's going to get handed off. Kellen has done the bulk of the recruiting. Houston has the number 1 class in 2025. Stands to reason that Kellen did do a big chunk of that recruiting. It stands to reason that he would continue to have that kind of success in the future. Kellen works with the forwards in the front court. Kellen handles a lot of things on the program. So at some point, you got to think they end off. You also had Quantus White, one of Kelvin's favorite assistants, take a head coaching job. Kelvin is ecstatic for him. I don't mean that they're upset about it, but that would be another easy way to hit the exit button here. Micah Conham, who is a Houston area guy and that Kelvin knows from many, many moons ago when they overlapped some in San Antonio, is not the same kind of player for Sampson that Quantus was, right? And so that replacement wasn't quite 1-to-1. It stands to reason that people wondered, like, what would come next? Now, I will say that Kelvin extending his career at Houston for the next 4 years, if they get, over 25 wins a season, he's got a real shot at being in the top 5 in terms of all-time wins as a college basketball coach. Even with 20 wins, he'll be inside the top 10 very soon. 20 wins a season, I should say, but in the top 10 very soon. At Houston, he's been to 7 straight NCAA tournaments. He's had a pair of Final Fours, 6 straight conference titles, 10 straight 21 seasons. Really, really impressive resume just in his time at Houston. Never mind the extensive time at Washington State and Oklahoma and Indiana before that. And so I say all that to say that the guy can hang it up and go to the Hall of Fame whenever he wants, right? Like truthfully, just reviving the Houston Cougar program and getting it to where it is a Hall of Fame career in and of itself. But then you factor in everything else. If the guy said, hey, just kidding, I got to put the whistle up and left tomorrow, he's a Hall of Famer, right? That's just the way that is. And that extended to 2029 I think is interesting because, it adds to this window of like, okay, getting Sampson that first title is important. I feel like, again, you were 65 seconds away from it a year ago or just a month ago. God, that feels so long ago. I don't want to think about that anymore. You were 65 seconds away from it then, right? You return a large chunk of this team. If Miles Uzan returns, you're returning 4 of the 8-man rotation. It's pretty good. I guess kind of 3 anyway of the 8-man rotation. So you feel good about that. It's also 3 starters, right? And Uzan and Sharp and Tugler, right? On top of that, you bring in one of the top transfers in Pop Isaacs to replace LJ Cryer at that 2-guard spot. Seems big, seems important. And on top of that, You bring in the number one recruiting class in America in 2025 with 3 5-star kids. I'm telling you that Bryce kid, he's going to be a hidden gem. Pay attention to that name. And so with all of that, it stands to reason that, like, okay, 2025-6 is going to be a big year for the program as well. But as you're reaching out, we mentioned in an earlier episode this week that he was in Memphis and in Omaha and watching these high-level AAU kids in classes of 2026s and 2027s and doing recruiting. It solidifies his stance as a recruiter to have on contract, on the books. I will be at Houston at least this long, right? He has the right to retire whenever he wants to, and he has the Hall of Fame career to do so. But I think it really does help build the longevity of the program with that date being a little further out, right? It also, I think, kind of dispels the idea, and I bluntly had kind of thought it made some sense that he might have hung it up and retired had they won the title last month. I don't think that winning a title is going to end his career. I think he's probably trying to get a couple here before the end, and he's got the program set up to do it. He continues to dominate the Big 12, and while some of those wins are by the skin of your teeth, he's built a culture and is known now as the culture builder that, like, wins those games by the skin of their teeth. That's kind of their thing. And anyway, it's interesting to see it all coming together. As contract details come out, what I'm going to be paying attention to, and what I hope you are as well, what kind of language they've got around the handing over of the program to Kellen, right? Can he hand it over before 2029? Can he hand it over before 2029 and be sure that Kellen gets it? Can he hand it over in 2029 and be sure that Kellen gets it? I think that'll all be yes, but we shall see, right? What do the contracts look like for his assistants? We know he's done this before, where he's taken a minute to talk about the contract extension with administration to be sure that his assistants get treated fairly, correctly. He feels very paternalistic about his assistant coaches, not just because his son is one of them, but he's had quotes before about how he hires his guys and people that he feels something to take care of, because some sort of an honor to take care of, right? Because if he won't hire guys that played for him or coached for him elsewhere, why would he expect anyone else to, right? So we want to make sure those guys are taken care of. That makes sense. I want to see how they do that, and what kind of stipulations they got in there on that. He's asked for things before that big blue blood programs have, like private jets, and or at least access to one and things like that. And I think some people initially scoffed, but then when I tell you, well, last weekend he was bouncing between recruiting tournaments, big time AAU tournaments in Memphis and Cincinnati and Omaha, and he was kind of three-wheel going all the way around. It makes some sense that he needs to be able to get to where he's getting when he needs to get there, right? Having to find commercial flights for that could be really, really challenging, to say the least. And so I think that, what are those kinds of perks in his contract? Reports are that he is, as far as the dollar amount goes, remaining in that top portion of coaches in all of college basketball. That's somewhere, I'd imagine, around the $6 to $7 million range. We'll see that when the contract comes out. As a public school, it will come out, right? And so we'll see all of those details unfold as more comes to light.
Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Crazy news out of Utah and Salt Lake County in particular, as BYU starting quarterback Jake Retzlaff has had a civil lawsuit filed against him, accusing him, among other allegations, of sexual assault and rape. We are going to try and make heads and tails of this and lay out the simple facts on today's show, and then we will proceed at if Jake Retzlaff is unable to continue with his playing career in Provo, who might succeed him at quarterback for the BYU football program. That's how we're going to go about things today. So I am going to try and play this right down the middle. I'm going to try and play news anchor and just give you the news. I was as shocked and as horrified and stunned and every other adjective under the sun when this report hit yesterday that Jake Retzlaff, BYU starting quarterback, has been accused of battery, strangulation, sexual assault, and rape, as well as infliction of an emotional distress stemming from an incident on November 22nd, 2023. Jake Retzlaff has been accused by a plaintiff who is identified in the lawsuit as Jane Doe A.G. That is the way they identify the victim. That is not the victim's name. They have not been publicly identified as of the recording of this podcast. That could change in time. But the simple facts laid out before us here say that Jake Retzlaff has been accused, as I mentioned, in a civil lawsuit. Let's also acknowledge that civil lawsuit is very different from actual criminal charges. There have been no criminal charges. So this is going out Thursday, maybe late Wednesday night, May 21st / May 22nd. As of May 21st, May 22nd, there have been no criminal charges levied or filed against Jake Retzlaff. Civil lawsuits are a different matter. They obviously, in criminal matters, they have to deal with beyond a reasonable doubt. That is the level that you have to rise to in terms of filing charges and ultimately pursuing said charges in a court case. Under civil lawsuit guidelines, it's the preponderance of the evidence if it is whether you win or lose the case, depending on which side you are on. It's a different level that you have to rise to in terms of where you can win in this case. And it is currently a civil lawsuit. That is to be very clear about that. It is not a criminal proceeding at this point. Could that happen in time? Yes, it could. They obviously, the reports say that the victim, the alleged victim, had a rape kit administered a few days after this alleged incident. And we will see what comes out of that. That reporting still has yet to be followed up on, and we don't know the status of said rape kit, if it has been processed, etc. Other things we need to acknowledge here is that Jake Retzlaff has retained a very, very high-profile attorney who represented in, I think it was 2016 or thereabouts, former NBA star Derrick Rose. Now, Derrick Rose and two of his friends were sued under a civil lawsuit by Rose's ex-girlfriend, accusing him and his two friends of rape. Mark Bouty was the lawyer who stepped in and represented him. He was the defense counsel in that. And Derrick Rose and his two friends were ultimately exonerated by an 8-person jury in the case in Los Angeles. Mark Bouty has got a long reputation and has represented a number of high-profile individuals, particularly in the entertainment sphere and in sports sphere. So Jake Retzlaff has retained high-level representation in this. And that brings me to this. I was among others in the media corps around BYU who were sent an email. It was the first statement we got shortly after these accusations were levied. It came from Mark Bouty, and I have to say the pronunciation I am using comes from KSL TV. I'm going off their pronunciation of their report. So if I butcher Mr. Bouty's name, I apologize. I am following the lead of my compatriots at KSL. But Mr. Bouty, I'm throwing this up on YouTube. If you're watching this, you'll see the statement on your screen. It says this, quote, "I am counsel for Jake Retzlaff. I have met him, and he is a nice young man. He is also factually innocent, and we look forward to proving that innocence. Jake's focus this year will be on football. We don't try cases in the media. We will respect the process and establish Jake's innocence through the judicial system," unquote. Doing my due diligence as a journalist, I also reached out to BYU asking if they had a statement they wanted to issue on the matter. That came just before 4 p.m. Mountain Time on Wednesday, and they said this, quote, BYU became aware that a civil lawsuit involving Jake Retzlaff had been filed this morning. The university takes any allegation very seriously, following all processes and guidelines mandated by Title IX. Due to federal and university privacy laws and practices for students, the university will not be able to provide additional comment, unquote. So that brings us to, we have a high-profile attorney representing and being retained by Jake Retzlaff. We have the allegations from that incident stemming from November 22nd, 2023. And we have BYU obviously invoking that Title IX is involved in all of this. And when Title IX gets involved, there is going to be a discovery process. There are going to be extra investigations into all this. There will be a total preponderance of all of the evidence out there. And reading, and this is my personal interpretation. Maybe I'm not just reporting the news. Mr. Boutty's statement to me screams that Jake Retzlaff and his representation fully intend on fighting this and taking it to court. That is the way that statement reads to me, because factually innocent, that screams to me that they plan on laying out a case that they believe will ultimately exonerate Jake Retzlaff of these charges. Now, also in this report included what I consider to be a fairly, I consider it egregious, but that the Provo Police Department has been alleged in this incident to have, I guess you would say, encouraged, I don't want to say encouraged, but was alleged to have told the victim here that not to pursue any legal recourse. Now, Provo Police Department issued a statement. I'm going to share this on you up here so you guys can see it as well. If I can get this to pull up so you can see the whole thing, but so the statement comes from Provo Police, and I'm going to read it in its entirety. And they fire back on the accusations that officers encouraged the victim not to pursue legal action in this matter. The quote says, quote, "The Provo Police Department is aware of a civil suit involving an allegation of rape made by an anonymous plaintiff against a BYU football player. Provo Police Department has not been served any legal filing relating to this civil case. The civil suit involves enough detail of the alleged assault for the department to identify a possible correlating case report. Our records show that on November 27th, 2023, our department received a phone report from a woman with the initials AG who gave a similar account. She was treated with courtesy and care. The complainant in that case was given several opportunities to identify her abuser. She declined to do so, as is her right, and the case was subsequently closed. Collected evidence was examined and revealed no actionable investigative leads." I think that's the key statement in all of this. But continuing, "Because of the civil suit does not identify the victim, we cannot be certain our police report is the same incident referenced by the plaintiff, but it does seem likely given the information we have." Continuing, "The civil suit states that Provo police personnel discouraged the victim from proceeding by telling her there is no justice for victims of sexual abuse. From everything we have reviewed, this is not true. We have a team of dedicated investigators and victim advocates whose sole mission is to provide justice to victims of sexual abuse. They do not send people away, warning them there is no justice for victims. Our Special Victims Unit investigations regularly result in criminal accountability for offenders. We hope the plaintiff chooses to make a statement to further criminal investigation if desired. We will continue to assist and serve all victims of abuse," unquote. There is no way that this is going to be finalized or resolved soon. I'm sure that some of you out there would like to think, Jake, how soon this could stretch out months, to be very blunt. I am not a legal expert. I do not proclaim to be. I did not go to law school despite my mother's wishes when I was a younger man. But when you have Title IX involved, you have police looking into this. I would imagine they will potentially reopen their investigation if so desired, as I mentioned, from this victim. There will be what appears to maybe be a trial with Mark Bouty and Jake Retzlaff and this victim. This screams to me this is going to stretch on for weeks, if not months, and we are today 100 days away from the start of the BYU football season. So buckle up. It is going to be a summer full of legalese, court proceedings, and who knows what else.
The NBA playoffs roll on, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and you place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. FanDuel makes betting easy, whether it's picking your favorites or diving into player props from three-pointers to steals to assists. There's so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
A top 3 player in the state and a highly coveted target defensive lineman both commit to the Illini.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It's nice to finally get some sort of confirmation. And once Nasir announced, that he was coming to Illinois, I was excited to talk about it. And that's why I bring you on. Let the Illini Nation know a little bit about Nasir's game.
Well, first off, this is the kid that when I think of Chicago athletics growing up, they always had point guards and stuff that would just made everybody look dumb. On a football field, that's what Rankin is like. His lateral ability and his ability to stop and start are next level. So whether you put him at nickel corner, slot receiver, outside receiver, free safety, doesn't matter. His ability to mirror another player or making another guy go away starts with his feet. He has tremendous athleticism. Secondarily, he does have open field speed. Can't teach it. Natural track kind of kid. He's kind of like a slinky. He can change direction so well and still keep his speed. And as you noted, the Illini just don't get this kind of kid, regardless of the state, especially Chicago. They have failed in Chicago for the vast majority of my life, to be really honest. Outside of basketball, that's a whole nother animal. But they haven't done very well with the football side. And getting a kid from Morgan Park is also helpful. That's a program that's always got players. Getting somebody from there is going to help you keep other kids in state. They're going to know who Rankin is. So are the other coaches. This is a big pickup for Bielema and the Illini.
So Nasir's recruitment's interesting in the sense that he's being recruited as an athlete. And, there's been talk, that he could play wide receiver, and there's been talk that he could play as defensive back. Can you maybe just kind of briefly give me like an idea of what kind of traits he has that might be good as a wide receiver? And then also maybe what kind of traits he has that might translate well to defensive back?
Just watching highlight films, it's not quite the same, but if I had to pick one or the other, and I'm Illinois, I would pick receiver, because name the last time they got a receiver that had this kind of twitchiness. Sure. It's just scarcity. If you look at the teams that go far in the playoff, they've got really good lines and they have a special guy on offense that you have to account for. That's generally how it works. It could be a running back. It could be a tight end, like the kid that was at Georgia a couple of years ago that's now with the Raiders. There's always somebody you got to account for. Rankin is one of those players, and he's so good. Once he catches the football and he catches the ball away from his body, he's got good hands. It would be a natural fit to me. Now, I know Bielema, although they think of him as an O-line guy because when he was at Wisconsin and Arkansas and all that, and they kind of do that a little bit at Illinois. He understands defensive football. He was a defensive end when he played at the University of Iowa, et cetera. Maybe he plays him defensively, and he's got the flexibility and the true ability to be physical, despite he's not the biggest guy. He's 6'1", 170, 180 pounds, but he's physical enough to be a guy that could be a lockdown corner. It's just easier to avoid that guy than it is the receiver. That's how I would play it, but athletically, it doesn't matter. He can do either. It would come down to what Illinois wants to do and what Rankin wants to do. The good news is you got options.
Again, you've watched some of his tape. I've watched some of his tape. How far away do you think he is from making an impact at the college level?
If he plays offense, it's day one. Defense is a little different. Defense is more about technique if you're going to play corner, because if you make a mistake at corner, what happens?
Yeah.
So, again, and Illinois going to do what they're going to do. Bill, I'm going out on a limb here. He's kind of stubborn. He's going to do what he does. Zero chance for me that I would play him on defense because they don't get this kind of kid. Changes your offense, and everybody plays 8 in the box against Bielema teams. You start getting guys like Rankin on offense, even if you just got an above-average quarterback, you don't have to get the guy that's now with the Bears to play quarterback for you to be a good offense. You've got to be able to hit reverses and screens, generic plays that everybody knows coming, but my guy is better than your guy. I just think that he would be an impact guy just to have in the lineup because, again, after the first time he returns a punt for a touchdown or takes a slip screen 60 yards for a score, other teams' defensive coordinators would be like, man, this sucks, but now we have to make some decisions. And Illinois is going to be in a physical mentality no matter who they're playing. That's just what Brett's teams do.
Yeah.
And that helps. He's not going to get as much double team necessarily kind of coverage, especially early in his career. But even if that safety takes one step further away from the hash, that helps your running back because that backside safety may not catch him if he's going down the side. All those little details. That's why coaches talk, again, effort, technique, knowing your personnel. This kid may not even be in the play. He could be the backside receiver, but they're shaded over. You run toss to the other side, and you have fewer defenders going against your player. I'd play him on offense because I think that's the easiest path for him to get on the field. Just give him packages. I know coaches, again, they want everybody to know everything. He's not going to know everything as a freshman, but got to get that kind of kid on the field, even if it's just part-time. Run some, up-tempo stuff with him. I think he could be a dynamic player in year one.
So, Brian, Illinois, for the most part, is known as a basketball school. Things have changed a little bit recently, with Brett Bielema seemingly turning around the program. But that's kind of why I want to talk to you about. I'm very Illini-centric, and so I'm kind of in the world. But you scout national recruiting. Let me ask you, what kind of perception does Illinois have now, more on a bigger scale, when it comes to Brett, when it comes to the program? Because they seem to be able to go out to different states and, get 4 stars and, which seemingly didn't happen as much before. They seem to have a lot of positive momentum going on. Am I wrong?
No, I don't think that's the case as a fact. They're just way different than what I thought even a year ago. I mean, they had a pretty good year, but when you put them back to back and teams know you're coming, like they're playing against Michigan and other schools toe to toe, they're physical with them. That was when I knew, because like Michigan, obviously, like their O-line last few years have been tremendous. I knew then they had a chance. The difference for me was, and even some of the guys that I know, like I've got family in Illinois, outside the numbers, on one side of the ball, they were usually really good. On the other, receiver, I'm like, I couldn't name a receiver in Illinois. I couldn't, and that's a problem. That's the only thing left for them is the offense is considered to be 1995. It just is. I know Bielema doesn't care, but recruits do. That's the only thing left. Fair or not, it's their opinion's the only one that matters. Brett's does not.
Right.
To get the kids where I live in the South, they've got to be more Ferrari-like than pickup truck-like. So that's the only thing left. I'm curious to see what they do this next year. They got a lot of players back. Had a great season, won 10 games. Perception is picking up, but to get over that hump, they got to beat somebody in a fun way. That's the only, I don't know if Brett will ever, I think Brett would rather shoot himself than do that, but I need to see the ball in the air more to get the full-on effect. Like Ohio State doesn't just win, they win flashy. That matters. And that's the last thing for Illinois, that, by the way, Nasir will help that. That's a kid that can just run so well. Even if it's just one player making some plays like that, it will change the perception of your football program.